Why one man will just make a woman open up in feelings of love, and that same man will be nice to another woman, but she doesn't have those same feelings to her. There's a actual dynamic between the different energy centers in the body. If we look at the 7 basic energy centers, they're like circuits in the body. And we're not all, as individuals, we're not completely whole in that all those circuits are connecting all the time. For example, I just spend time with some people and suddenly I naturally feel smarter. I feel brighter. That's because their circuits are activating a part of my circuitry that makes the energy flow more completely. Often people go to a spiritual teacher and they'll put them on a pedestal because just in the presence of that person, they feel so spiritually more awakened. One of the higher centers starts to open. Well, it's not that that person sitting there would have that effect on everyone, nor does that person necessarily have all their circuits together at all. It's just that they happen to have 1 or 2 circuits that are open that complete another person. In a similar way, it's like a man being turned on to a woman over here and another man not being turned on. This woman literally activates some circuitry inside of this man that completes his energy center, so now energy is flowing to the sexual center. There's always been known in the past the muse. The muse would inspire the writer. If he didn't have the muse, that little circuitry that allows him to express what's inside of him simply couldn't be connected. So that's what the muse does. So in a variety of situations, our relationships activate certain circuits inside of ourselves that connect up the different energy centers. Generally, when we find someone that we're in love with, someone that we want to share our life with, that's what we often call a soulmate. And that's someone who activates the circuits in our heart. They activate us to the eternalness of love. And so when we interact with this person and we're open, not when we're shut down, but when we're open, we feel this part of us that can love them forever and wants to love them forever. And that's what we often define as a soulmate. They may not be the one that opens our mind or opens our sense of creativity or gives us confidence. They're going to be the one that opens our heart. It could be they can open 3 levels or 2 levels or all 7 levels. And that's the uniqueness of every relationship. Never look for perfection in a person, but to know that the perfect relationship for us is someone who stimulates in us, when we're feeling centered, they stimulate within us a feeling, a knowing that this is a person I'd like to share my life with. In their presence, I become a better person.
The people we meet and the spiritual experiences we attract by coincidences may not actually be coincidences. They may be the results of our personal broadcasting.
So when you want to make contact with your soulmate in the conscious field before actually meeting them in person, it's when you're actually doing your soul work on a daily basis that you want to put those intentions and feelings into the field. What I mean is, like during meditation or prayer, you want to put the feeling tone of wanting to meet your soulmate into that space. Or if you're writing about your inner emotions and desires, you want to put that feeling tone there. Or if you're, just nurturing yourself, put the feeling tone of having a soulmate relationship in that space, in that soul work space, which will go into the conscious field. What you don't want to do is put preconceived ideas into that space about what your soulmate looks like, who they are, all those things. It has to do with control. And when you're really ready for your soulmate, you're ready to let go of your control, because a soulmate is in fact a soul bond. It doesn't have to do with all those outward, conditions or ideas. It has mostly to do with that soul connection. So that's why I say you put the feeling tone in that special space more than anything.
As human beings, each one of us is characterized by our own vibrational frequency, which is a reflection of the proteins in creating our biology. The significance is that as individuals with individual frequencies, there are some people whose frequencies are more complementary or more matching than other individuals whose frequencies are quite different. The relevance to this is that matching frequencies or complementary frequencies interact with each other and actually, in the terms of physics, interfere with each other. And as 2 very closely related frequencies come together, their interference patterns result in an enhancement of the field itself, a powering of that field. So this is called constructive interference. And allows 2 individuals that are closely related to communicate across this field. the most characteristic and easily understood communication is that it usually occurs between a mother and her child, which are, of course, very much connected to each other. And in fact, the child has cells from the mother in it because of the developmental processes that occur during fetal development. And more importantly, the mother has stem cells from her child in her body as a result of fetal development as well. So that both the mother and the child are actually sharing cells with the same receptor frequencies on them. And as a result, and this is very interesting because mothers will report this, that they will know if something is wrong with their child no matter where their child is on the planet. That this is a very, very common experience, that if a child is hurt, a mother will know this even if she's on the other side of the planet. This is just a demonstration of the fact that the communication between individuals can be picked up through this vibrational field, and specifically through the receptors of identity on the surfaces of our cells. Well, the significance of that is it doesn't have to be your own child. It's people that you actually complement with out in the field can communicate across these distances. And very interestingly enough, when people come together as couples and are together long enough, they can actually begin to use this field as communication mechanism without even using words. So it's very funny sometimes to hear a couple that has been together for a very long time communicate with each other with totally incomplete sentences, with no subjects or verbs, and yet both of them understanding the communication while an outside party has no idea what they're talking about. And that is because we have two levels of communication, the field and via the particle, via the body. So it's interesting that we're now beginning to recognize the fields in effect, and this is very, very critical for both our communal organization as well as our own physiological expression, to recognize the power of the vibrations and how they can influence our own biology.
Brainwaves are indicative of consciousness, and consciousness can travel as a wave. These waves can be reduced to numerical values of wave particles, amplitudes, frequencies, spin, codes, and information. Professional numerologists study these numbers and codes. They study the numerical values of the position of the stars and the planets at the time and date of our birth location, and our name. Is it possible for advanced numerology to determine our relationships and possible future outcomes?
Numbers have harmonic and disharmonic relationships, just like music does. So you can listen to certain music and you know, my gosh, I don't like it, it jars me, there's too much disharmony. And the same goes for numbers. So let's say somebody has a prevalent amount of 3s, 6s, and 9s in his or her blueprint, and they meet somebody with a lot of 4s and 8s. They're not going to get along as readily as with somebody who also has the creative 3, 6, and 9s in their blueprint. So you can see, and in the same way, there are certain numbers that are magnetically attracted to each other. Those are the numbers 4 and 8. So they have almost a fateful relationship to each other. So it gets quite complex as we look at the song and the numbers song of each person, and you actually create two blueprints, put them together, just like a musical. You take two melodies or harmonies and you put them together, and what does it create? Does it create something jarring or not? And certainly with people, we can see how their numbers will either work well together, be compatible, or be completely harmonious, just because numbers are a resonance. They describe something that is key to who you are.
Your soul energy is a unique signal that is broadcast into a field where your soulmate's soul energy is being broadcast as well. So that is where your souls are bonded when you have a soulmate, and that's where you're already having a relationship with your soulmate, whether you're aware of it or not. And whether you're aware of your soul desires and feelings, or if you're not, is irrelevant, because you're already bonded with your soulmate on that level. And the goal is to become aware of yourself on that level so that you can broadcast your soul into the conscious field where your soulmate can do the same, and that will trigger and speed up the process of finding your soulmate in a physical plane so that you actually are meeting them and are able to have a relationship on a day-to-day basis.
Our DNA represents our entire genetic blueprint. It is here that everything about us is represented by letters in the DNA matrix code language. Our destiny appears fixed because of this unshakable blueprint. Dr. Fritz Albert Popp, the discoverer of biophotons in 1976, proved the origin of these human light emissions are emanating from our DNA, the core reactor from where we are broadcasting our personal energy signature. Dr. Bruce Lipton has made a revolutionary discovery that first proved that the DNA nucleus is not the brain of the cell,